Good afternoon. It's 3 o'clock, and we're going to call the Justice and Public Safety Committee to order. Second item on the agenda is Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You did that. Item number 3 is adoption of the agenda. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda? Moved by Kraft, supported by Myjack. Is there any discussion on the agenda? Please vote on your iPad. The agenda is adopted. Item number 4 is approval of the minutes from September 7th. Is there a motion to adopt? Moved by Romano, supported by Leonetti. Any discussion on the minutes from September 7th of 2017? Please vote on your iPad. The minutes are adopted. Item number 5 is public participation. Are there any members of the public who wish to address this committee? Seeing none, we'll close public participation and move to item number 6, which is a department recommendation from the prosecutor's office. It's a budget amendment regarding the crime victims grant. And Kim, are you going to speak on this?
I don't need to unless you have questions.
Well, first let's do, is there a motion? Motion by Myjack, supported by Kraft. Do you want to give us a quick overview of the grant?
We have a VOCA grant. It pays for 2 of the victim advocates that are in our office, and we've got extra funding for a part-time person, so I just wanted to amend the budget for the part-time person.
Okay. Can you just give the commissioners an overview about what the victims advocates do on behalf of the constituents?
Okay, we work in the prosecutor's office, and we help victims of crime understand the criminal justice system. We make referrals and provide information to victims. This particular grant only works with domestic violence victims. We have advocates in the office who also work with senior citizens, sexual assault and death cases, and children. But this one was just specifically for domestic violence.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions or any discussion on this item? I don't have any speakers on the list. All those in favor, please vote on your iPad. And the item unanimously passes. Thank you. Item number 7 is the budget reviews. The first one is the JJC.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. You can find the child care budget on page D23 of your budget. Of course, the child care fund is composed of essentially 2 different operations. You have the detention operation, which is headed up by Rhonda Westphal, as you know, and then there's really a court function as well with placement programs and that sort of thing, which the courts are involved with. So the child care fund includes both of those. I know the detention portion of that budget is first on the agenda. If you turn to page D24, that gives a breakout of the cost by different functions. You can see that of the $21.7 million operation, about 10.9 of that is actually in the detention piece at the youth home or the juvenile justice center. And you've got about 2.7 in placement programs and about $3.5 million in placement costs where we're housing kids in outside institutions. There's a few things going on in the child care fund itself. Most notably, you'll see under the room and board section of the budget, there's about a $300,000 reduction there. So what we're trying to do is align costs more closely with our actual expenses of housing juveniles in outside facilities. You'll also see further down there's a decrease of about $150,000 in contract services. That is mostly in psychiatric fees at the juvenile section of the operation. There's a large increase in internal services. It's about $500,000 or $450,000 maybe. What's happening there is that's an increase in indirect costs that the state is allowing us to charge back to them. So they normally pay 50% of the operation. In this particular fund, they're also allowing us to charge an additional 10% in indirect costs. So those revenues, half of that flows in as revenue from the state, the other half flows in as revenue to the general fund, more or less. So there's a number of things going on. You'll see this, the pension line item is reduced by $400 and some thousand. That's all tied into what we said very early on in this process about how we're realigning our chargebacks for pension and retiree health care charges. The net bottom line is that the general fund contribution is going down about $770,000 from 17 to 18. You'll see that the revenue is up by about $1 million. That's basically the state's portion of this. So they pay 50% of the net costs of operating the whole fund. So I know Rhonda's here. I know she's first on the agenda if she wants to talk more about kind of operations in general. If you have any questions for me about what's going on within the numbers, then I'd be certainly happy to answer those.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Rhonda Westphal. I'm the facility director, and if you, as Steve had indicated, if you have any questions about what's going on operationally at the facility that I might be able to help you with today, if at all.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess my number is a little more historic, and my question is a little more historic in nature, and that is the sizable jump in part-time and full-time wages from 2016 to 2017. The numbers are reasonably flat, you know, from this past year to this upcoming year, but you know, it looks like there was about a 25% increase in that previous year in full-time wages, and then even larger increase in part-time wages from 16 to 17, and just a little historical context for us newer commissioners.
And I suspect that that is related to our RIF that happened in late 2015. We closed down some of our treatment programs. We had a reduction in force. Those programs reopened in 2016. So it's not added positions. There was positions that were budgeted for, vacated during a reduction in force, and then refilled when we reopened those programs.
Okay, so programs may have been shut down as a result of the economic times, or?
Well, it was there was several issues going on with regard to that. There was a decreased need on behalf of the court for residential services, and I can certainly Nicole can probably speak to that better than I can. And there was also an effort to take our treatment programs and reinvent the approach that we were using with kids. The approach we're using now is one that's more trauma-informed. It's more aligned with evidence-based services and interventions.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Rhonda, I'll start with you since you're up here, then I'll get back to you, Steve. I've got a couple of questions. Your capacity from 16 to 17, where did you end up?
We are housing an average of about 60 youth on a daily basis. Now that's an average. Sometimes we'll be a little higher than that, and then sometimes a little bit lower.
And how many can you accommodate?
The total beds in the facility is 140. Historically, those beds have not been used. 2 years ago, we were housing an average of about 75 youth. So our average usage is probably down, I'd say, about 10 to 15 youth in the last 5, 6, 7 years.
Which hopefully is a good trend.
That is a good thing. That's a good trend, yeah.
And hopefully it goes away.
Yeah.
Have we, I know years back, your predecessor, we talked about maybe getting outside to see if, you know, if there's any other housing since we had the facility. Have we looked at anything like that?
We still continue to provide bed space for St. Clair County. St. Clair.
Excuse me, is that part of the number that you're talking about now, or is that above?
That is part of the number that I'm talking about now. They're housing an average of about 5 youth, but just in our detention program, not in our treatment program. We entered into, Chuck actually entered in, my predecessor entered into a contract in summer of 2013. We still are in that same contract. It's been renewed twice. That's coming up for renewal in front of the board this winter, with the recommendation for incremental increase on that daily rate as well. St. Clair has agreed to that. They agreed to it last week. So I anticipate that we will continue on with that contract if the board wants to approve that, but we'll be getting a little higher daily rate on that.
Okay, and then, and that's great that St. Clair and you continue, but is there any other community or any other counties that you're looking at of?
Well, we haven't. We're in the Metro Detroit area. Wayne County has their own youth facility. Oakland Children's Village has their own facility. We have done some, not in a formal contractual way. We have housed a few Sanilac County youth on without a contract in place, but have charged them the same per diem that we've been charging St. Clair. It hasn't been done in a formal way. We are available to Sanilac. They don't have a large utilization, usage need, but we are positioned right in the middle of Metro Detroit with facilities that have their own services for kids.
Okay, and the next question for you is, do you know your food costs per meal or per day?
Our food costs per day, I would be guessing, with the 3 meals, probably about $15, $16 a day.
Okay.
It's 3 meals and a snack.
When you get the opportunity, if you could forward on to us your actual costs, if someone can get that information.
Yep.
And then where you're getting your food from?
We have an internal food service program. We have a full-service kitchen, so we have county employees who are in our kitchen working. They're employed by the county. We have reduced the staffing in there in the last 2 years, though. We've reduced 1 FTE in our kitchen to kind of get those costs down.
Okay. Have you guys explored working with the jail? I know they have a vendor, and I can't remember if anybody else can off the top of their head the costs, what they're paying. Okay, I'm asking, and has anybody reached out to you to see if you guys can make more meals, if you can, or vice versa, to see if you guys can
I've done some very preliminary review with costs if we were to use an outside vendor. Of course, I mean, we have county employees that are filling those positions right now, so I don't want to step out of my lane in that regard. We have not had another department reach out to ask if we can prepare meals on site for another department. That has not happened.
I'd be curious.
Point of information. Oh, yeah, thank you. I know that Martha Teaberry is redoing their kitchen right now. They're doing it with the anticipation, and they're planning their own new kitchen, but they've also left room for additional services. I know that they were talking with Meals on Wheels. I think the cost per meal for Meals on Wheels that they were guaranteeing them was at 3 meals a day would be considerably even lower than your 16. And I know you just guessed, so I understand. Right. And that's with people that are already employed at Martha Teaberry. So it would be something maybe if you wouldn't mind or would like to talk to Kevin Evans about, because he's been talking with the Meals on Wheels people a bit, and maybe making that offer to them to have a centralized kitchen. They have flash freezing available. They have all the nutritional requirements already because of being that type of facility. So it might be something. I know Commissioner Carabelli's been talking about this forever. I've talked with Kevin about it, and so they are in the process of doing this and leaving space open to increase demand. So it might be something to look at.
Yeah, I'll reach out to Kevin right away.
Great, thanks.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you. Now for Steve, if you mind. Steve, I understood you talked about the pension and health care. I understand that. Did you touch on the supplies and services?
No, I did not. I was going to, when
would
Rhonda was
appreciate
done, I was going to come back up. I did not do that.
I'm glad you are, because I was waiting for you.
No, when I sat down, I realized I did not do that. There's a couple things going on in supplies and services. So there's about a $200,000 increase going on there. So that's made up of an increase in a number of smaller decreases.
And here's where the confusion lies. Hold that thought, and I apologize. I don't mean disrespectful in stopping you, but the actual adopted, is $617,500. You're wanting to, and if I'm wrong, correct me. And you're wanting to amend the current fiscal year by just approximately $200,000, and then you're asking for over $1 million in 18. Am I reading this wrong, or?
Yeah, that, I'm not sure what the 600, I'm not familiar, as I stand here, that 617 was the adopted. I trust that it is. I don't know what we did during the year to increase it from 617 to 802.
So do you see the disconnect where it's not a
Right.
it's a $400,000 increase?
Yeah, that, I'm not sure, I mean, I'll research that and get back with you. What's happening from the amended 17 to the adopted 18 is a couple of things. Historically, until the recession of 2008, the county supplemented L'Anse Creuse schools for the difference between what they received in state aid or state school funds for the folks that were the teachers at the facility and what their actual costs were. 2008, that stopped. And it stopped until we're proposing in 2018 to bring that back on board. The school approached us earlier in the year and said, well, hey, it's been 8 or 9 years. You know, we're kind of struggling as well. Can you help us out? And do and restore that funding that was in place for until 2008, as far as I could remember in my history here at the county. So we've put $300,000 into the supplies and services line. The state pays half of that. So that's about a $150,000 increase, if you will, in that line item. And then we went through and analyzed other operating costs and made about $100,000 in reductions. And I don't know all the totality of all those.
Okay. If you can get some more information on the deal you have with the school, I'd appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Because off the top of my head, I know I don't want to say game, I know the process of why they would want to do that, because they get to count the heads that are inside the facility, and they get the state dollars to pay for that. They get all those state dollars, and then in turn you get the service of somebody coming in
Right.
and educating. So for us to pay a penny outside of that doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. If they're getting all that money directly from the state, they're actually getting it and keeping it, and we're going to subsidize it. I think you need to take a good look at that, and I hope I'm wrong, but I got a funny feeling that I'm right. Okay, and we need to find out why from 16. Or
Yeah, that one.
the adopted
Yeah, that's
17.
a couple hundred thousand, and off the top of my head, I don't know that.
It's actually 400,000, which is a double of what, I know your paperwork says what it is,
Right,
but it's really
right.
close to $500,000.
Yeah, I'll get back with you on
All
that.
right, thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Kind of along the same lines, Steve, and maybe the department head wants to come up. This is on the conferences and training. I'm looking at your supplemental sheet, and one of the items, if you look at your 2018 list of planned conferences, the one item number 5, it's in Indianapolis. It's $8,200. Now I know you're sending 3 people there, but some of the other ones you have just as many, if not more people, and it's far less. Is there a reason why that particular program costs so much?
I'm guessing, without having that right in front of me, that increased cost is related to that conference being a week long,
Okay.
as opposed to maybe a day long.
Okay.
And being more local.
And are any of these conferences mandatory? Are they something that you have to mandatorily go to? Or is it just something
They're
that,
not mandated. We have mandated training hours by
Right.
licensing. That would, I can't say that conference is mandated.
okay,
Can I say that conference is necessary for our staff to have the tools to provide the interventions our kids need? Yes.
Sure.
Yes. And that happens to be our clinical therapists that would be attending
Okay.
a conference in Indianapolis with our treatment team.
okay.
Yep.
All right, thank you.
Okay, sure.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. This might be just as much of a question for Steve as you, Rhonda, but so I have to go back to the supplies and services again, Steve, and I really didn't understand what you said, so I don't know if anybody else really did, but so if you wouldn't mind either, realizing that we don't know any of the background of this, so if you kind of talk about stuff, like the guys in the pension board meeting, talking all over my head. But I don't know if you want to maybe get something to us that maybe might explain that, or if
It
you
might be
could-
better. I mean,
Right.
we've put 300,000 in there for subsidy to the school, went through and made other reductions in line items by another 100,000 to get to that net of 200. But back to Commissioner Caravelli's question, I don't know why the amended budget is a couple $100,000 higher than the adopted for that category.
And let's go back to 2016 actuals, 460, 220 in 2016, $1,006,000 in 2018. That's over, that's over double. So the actual in 2016 shows 460, 220. And we're looking at, over 500,000.
Understood.
So, if you could make that make more sense, that would probably
Absolutely.
work out better.
Absolutely.
And kind of the same thing, and I don't know if this is what you were asking Commissioner Leonetti about the conferences or training, but similarly in 6, it was 19,241, and we're asking for 45, so there's another, more than double increase
And that could be
in
somewhere
something
in
like that.
Rhonda's budget or the court budget. We'll piece all that together for you.
Right. So those are the kind of things that, at least if nothing else, throw up a question mark to us to find out why in 2 years what we need that. Is it a once every 4 years comes this one
Right.
type of conference that everybody has to go to? Is that how it works?
Right,
or-
and back to Commissioner Drollett's comment earlier
Mm-hmm.
about the wages. So you'll see on the wages and almost all of the fringes, we're budgeting at, I think, 100 heads. And so we budget based on 100 census.
Mm.
And if we're only at 40 or 50, then our actual expenses are gonna be far less because we're not filling vacant positions.
Right. So that's part of that.
Because we don't know where the census is gonna be, so we're,
Right, which also works in similar, kind of to your budget that you're always X amount over at the end of the year for things like
again,
this, but that's
yeah.
quite a bit. That's all I'm
no,
saying.
I understand.
That's a
You
lot
could,
of money.
it could be things in supplies and services that are driven by that kind of thing too, such as bedding and clothing, or the actual food costs, or maybe not to the degree of 400 to $1 million, but,
Right,
you know,
okay. Yeah, so if
we'll,
that,
we'll piece all that together for you.
all right, thank you.
Commissioner Kleinfeld?
Thank you, Chair. This isn't actually directed to anybody, but Commissioner Carabelli has been asking for about 2 years every entity that supplies food or purchases food from anybody for meals, how much they're paying. And I think really to get to where he's trying to go, what I would like to see is maybe a document coming. Well, several people have said, well, we'll get back with you. And I don't always know if they have or they haven't. But what I would like is like a list of those entities, a coordinated document so that we know how much entity number 1 is paying for food, how much it costs entity number 2 to produce food. Kind of put it all together in a package, because I know where he's trying to go, and there's always, we're going to get the information back, but I just think if we don't have something coordinated, he can't get to where he's trying to go. Thank you.
Thank you. On that note, can I ask, when you kind of gave us a guesstimate of how much meal costs, is that inclusive, do you think, of wages and everything that goes along with it? So that's everything combined, including your staff, when you give me when you give a meal price on that, right?
That did not include the factoring in of revenues. Our particular meal program is through the National School Lunch and Breakfast.
Mhm.
So if we prepare qualifying meals, we have revenue come in.
Okay.
So that did not include the
Right.
revenue pulled off the top.
And that would be something like Commissioner Kleinfeld and Commissioner Carabelli we'd like to see, because it just seems kind of, it just doesn't seem right to have 5 different entities in the county preparing their own meals when 1 or 2 of them could do it if it would save money or even cost the same. So, but obviously you'd have to take that into account when you're given those numbers. So that would be great. Thank you.
Yeah, and I absolutely agree with you, and I'll contact Kevin right away on that.
Okay.
I understand your
Thanks.
needs in that regard. I agree with you. It doesn't make sense to have all that happening at different locations.
Commissioner Duge?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for being here. A couple of things as far as the food and how that's processed. If we can get a number from you, I remember going through this when we had to redo the kitchen at the jail, and that we were paying bag lunches at the jail were more expensive than when we prepared it ourselves. And one of the main things that we have to keep in mind is you've got, if you're getting subsidized for children's food, then that's different than what's going on at the jail. Can you mix those two? Maybe yes, probably no. But mixing Martha T. Berry food into it, they have their specific needs also for the people that reside there. So it's going, I'd like to get a number for what it's costing us to feed people from you, but we have to keep in mind that there are separate requirements for everybody in the county. If we can get a deal on buying something, then I'd like to coordinate it. And I think Commissioner Carabelli is 100% correct. But we also have to keep in mind that the requirements for who's getting fed are very, very different from one to the other location. That's what I wanted to bring up. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Commissioner Sauger?
Yeah, on the St. Clair County, how many beds are they allowed at the county youth home?
We don't have a cap, but they have been using an average of about 5 beds a day.
5 beds?
Sometimes it's as low as 2 or 3, and another day we might have 9 or 10 kids.
Okay.
Yeah.
And if they're used, if they have to go back to St. Clair County for any court, their people come up and pick them up, I
Oh,
presume, yeah.
absolutely, yes.
Okay.
Yep, they do all the
Okay.
transport, yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Rhonda, on your reimbursements, how do you budget that? Reimbursement, I'm assuming, is the amount that the facility is reimbursed for by the parents for the stay of the kids. Is that correct?
That would be one of the reimbursements, yes, the parent reimbursement.
Okay. Where else would you get reimbursement?
Okay. Well, it's St. Clair County, of course, pays us to house kids. That would be part of revenues, or if I don't know that you want to call it reimbursement, but it is a revenue line.
Is that number contained in the reimbursement line?
It is in a separate reimbursement line.
So what you'll see, Commissioner, is that the St. Clair County reimbursement is under charges for services. That's the charge back to them. The reimbursement line item is the reimbursements we're receiving from the parents.
Okay. And how do you budget that? Is it based on a percentage? I mean,
We're trying to look at historical trends and just kind of, take our best estimate, our best educated guess, because we don't know year to year based on who's in and, the financial situations of the parents that are in, that sort of thing. So we charge the parents, whether we receive the cash or not, it's kind of a ebb and flow with the economy and
what happens? I
demographics.
mean, is there a collection? Do we have collections of these amounts?
The collections for the parent reimbursement is actually done by our
But the
family
court does
division.
that.
They do it on behalf of the facility as part of their collections department.
So who does it? The court does it?
The family court. but
Yeah.
Okay. And so then do they file actual litigation against people who haven't paid? So do you have a list of what your outstanding amounts due are? I mean, how much is due to the county from?
I don't know that off the top of my head, but we can get that for you.
Okay. So once a kid is discharged from the juvenile court, does that, obviously that debt stays, and once they're discharged, the referee loses jurisdiction and ability to collect. Then what happens on that?
Well, I'll have the court speak to that.
They continue, sorry. The rate of, they're charged it's $170 a day that goes on the parent's bill. It is based on ability to pay. There's an indigency standard and those sorts of things. Parents come in and make payments when they can. When the child is discharged, their reimbursement case is still there, and so reimbursement hearings are done by our chief referee where parents come in and talk about what they can pay, what they can't pay, where they're at, those sorts of things. But their JJC stay is on there. There are probation service fees. There are state minimum costs. There are many things. So a bill could look like tens of thousands of dollars, depending on usage. If a kid went to placement, those sorts of things. I mean, realistically, we probably get pennies on the dollar. Not all of our families can afford to pay like the actual amount. It's very rare that we have a family that's keeping up with $170 a day while their child is in detention. Or placement costs can be more, $200-300 a day, depending.
Okay. Could you just get us an idea of how much is owed to the county that's outstanding on that?
Yeah, we should be able to
Okay.
get that out of court view.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Are there any other speakers? I don't have any on my list. Is there a motion to receive and file? Moved by Brown, supported by Lucido. Please vote on your iPad. The next item on the agenda is the court budget, and we have Judge Biernat.
Hello. You all know, well, most of you, I think almost everybody knows me. I'm Judge Biernat from Macomb County Circuit Court and Probate Court in the 42nd District Courts. I have my staff here, if they can come up. Everyone can come up. I just brought everybody here, so. Support staff. My court administrator, Julie Bovachan. John Nizel's my deputy court administrator. Nicole Foltz is our juvenile administrator, who's over to Tom Blum is our friend of the court administrator. John Brennan is probate administrator, and Lisa Ellis is our specialty courts administrator. Well, it's called the court services. Court services, yes. Oh, and
Susan's our finance director.
Oh, Susan Sabo is our finance director.
And Dave Joseph is our program director for juvenile.
That's right. And so the courts are running smoothly. We have a lot of stuff going on right now, obviously. It's very loud in our courtroom because of the construction. We are asking, primarily, we're asking for small increases in our in certain line items that concern juries, expert witnesses, court-appointed attorney fees, and that's primarily because we've had it's over, I think, a 30% increase. Is it over 30% increase, 33% increase of criminal jury trials from last year. And so our judges are busy, and but other than that, everything's going well. We saved the county, the general fund, $100,000 in our request for the juvenile, placing out the juveniles, keeping more people, new juveniles in the juvenile center. So any questions that you have, I'm more than happy to try to help out, and all my staff is willing to answer any questions. Yeah, Steve was. There's like a fly in here.
Yeah, exactly. Couldn't hear you.
I had a longer speech, but this fly was bothering me. I could not concentrate. It's a new technique on the board of commissioners, so the flies over there.
Yeah, in general, the courts are not asking for any new positions this year. I think the front of the court actually reduced one position, if I'm not mistaken. I can go very briefly, division by division by division, if you want me to. The circuit court has some, somewhat significant increase in supplies and services. That's about $200,000. It's about $100,000 in court-appointed attorney fees, $50,000 in jury fees, $25,000 in expert witness fees. That's really, in my mind, the only major change on the operating side for the circuit court. Again, no new positions in the circuit court. Revenues are relatively consistent with prior years. I can continue on if you so wish. The district courts are on pages C26 and C27. The New Baltimore Court, The budget is down about $80,000 maybe. The largest item in that line item or budget that's going down is the pension retiree healthcare line item. You'll also see about a $20,000 decrease in supplies and services. If you'll recall, when we talked about the IT budget, we were transferring some support costs for their Quadtran system from the district courts to the IT department. It's about $26,000. So that's what's going on in that line item. The Romeo Court, same thing's going on in supplies and services. There's about a $26,000 decrease in support costs for Quadtran, which basically brings that budget down to a flat amount from 2017. Slight decrease in repairs and maintenance. The overall budget's down $75,000, which again you're going to see, a $35,000 decrease in the pension and retiree health care costs. There is, if you go to page, I'm going to go to the juvenile court, which is on page C47. Again, there's about a $30,000 decrease in overall costs. There's about a $30,000 increase in the supplies and services from the current year amended to the next year's or 2018 recommended. There's about a $20,000 increase in litigation expense, which the court can probably talk about, and an $8,000 increase in cell phones. Again, no new positions there. The probate court, I do have an amendment that I need to propose. So if you look at the probate court budgets on page C50, you'll see that that budget's actually going down about $49,000, $50,000. The amendment that I would like to propose is a $10,000 increase in guardian ad litem costs, which is under the supplies and services line item, and a $4,000 increase in the book line item, which is also in supplies and services. You'll see as presented that budget's maybe $11,000 decrease. So really this brings that back up to basically where it was in 2017. What's happened there was when we put the budget together, we were looking in June and July at spending patterns, and things were not trending where they were in prior years, so we lowered the budgets. Mr. Brennan called me today, and I looked, and he said, well, wait a minute, things are trending back to where the budget was, and so I think there was some staff changeover at the probate court, so maybe the bills were delayed in getting to our office during the budget cycle. So these two adjustments or proposed amendments would then bring those line items back into line with the 2017 amounts. Again, no new positions. The budgets are fairly consistent. I don't know if anybody wants to speak to any of that or have any other questions.
So Steve, the guardian ad litem increase is not as a result of giving any increase to the attorneys,
No, we reduced the budget. We're bringing it back up to where it was.
Okay.
It's I think it was $100,000. We cut it to 90. It's trending more toward the 100.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank both of you for being here. Just want to make sure I understand it, the broad budget here. It seems like the increases that are existing are being driven by, as the judge said, more court cases going to trial, so we're having to pay more appointed attorney fees and jury fees and that sort of thing. So that
If you go to trial on a criminal case, it's more likely that a defense counsel at that point would ask for an expert on whatever issue that is. So there's more of a likelihood that actually, someone would be requesting an expert.
Okay. Okay, so that's helpful. I appreciate that. And then I think, Steve, this is a little broader, but it seems like every department is going up in supplies all the time. That's usually one of the bigger jumps. Is there something happening with supply costs across departments?
You probably have inflationary increases, but I mean, you could go department. I don't know. We could go department by department, kind of analyze line item by line item. see if there's what's
Yeah.
exactly going on. There's slight increases here or there.
Yeah, I haven't analyzed, but it just seems like that's always one of the things that we're going back to, saying, well, the supplies have increased this year by X, and it's always more than a 5% increase. At least it seems that way. Maybe I'll have to go back and look at the other budgets
Yeah,
of the
depending
departments.
on department by department, depends on the line items within that category within a department. In the case of the courts, for example, the defense attorneys, the court-appointed attorneys are on that line item, so you might see a large spike that's beyond some normal expectation
Okay.
for an increase. I'm just, most often it's postage, books, office supplies, advertising, printing. I mean, that's kind of the big ones I think of.
I'll see if I can go back and look at it. It just
Yeah.
seems like that was the thing that keeps standing out as something that's jumping
Yeah,
up more
I know.
significantly. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Steve, question for you. New Baltimore and Romeo. What is the, and I couldn't figure it out, what is the number that they're subsidized out of the general fund? Anything anymore?
No, you'll see in the bottom line, the expenditures in each of those courts exceed the revenue. So on the very last double underlined numbers with dollar signs where it says revenues over under expenditures,
That's each year what's coming out?
that's what basically the general fund is, if you want to look at it that way, is what the
I
general
do.
fund is subsidizing.
And I guess, which one built the new court? They both have
New
bond.
Baltimore. New Baltimore.
Well, let me back up. So that bonding issue for those buildings are not in their budget here, so we would have to look somewhere else. So if somebody says.
It's in
what-
debt service.
Okay, but if somebody said, what does it cost to run that jail? I can't really look at this, or the court, rather. I can't look at this because this budget is telling me this is my operating budget. It's not, though you do have a line for, capital outlay and everything else, you don't have the debt service on here for that. I don't know, maybe other commissioners know what the cost is for those courts. But this comes down to a point where New Baltimore, if I say, 2017 forecasted $770,000 is coming out of the general fund to subsidize that jail. I go into that court, I apologize. I go into the Romeo, 17 is $308,000. Now, I'm not an attorney, I'm not a judge, and hopefully I don't visit them for any other reasons. Is one running much more efficiently? Because it's not the cost because it's not built in here. Why is one court double to the general fund than the other one? I mean, that has to be asked.
Which one is that?
Because the residents where I live
Baltimore's
and the
more of a
taxpayers that I
drain
represent pay for their district court
than Romeo.
in
There's
their own
more
community.
revenue spike because Leduc has more people.
And I got major issues, and I've had this every year, and I'm sorry to belabor this, everyone, but it's important that we say, hey, hang on a minute. These courts are costing the whole county out of our general fund to subsidize these, correct?
Yeah, the total of the two, there's $1 million.
No?
And New Baltimore has more, their dockets are bigger than the Romeo docket, the
Baltimore
caseload.
is larger than Romeo's substantially. The personnel is slightly larger there, so their operating costs are going to be higher. Double is a little extreme, and we can look into that a little further to see.
I'm just looking at the numbers that are provided to me, and it's over double. And if other communities can operate within these budgets, how come we can't if we're in charge of, or the taxpayer, the county's in charge of them financially? And this isn't showing the true debt of what this is costing, that I don't know if a lot of the commissioners know of the, I believe it's New Baltimore that just got redone a couple of years ago, 3 or 4
Yeah, a
years
few
ago.
years ago.
And there's a bond on that the county's paying for, not the residents in those communities. So the residents in these communities that can support their own district court are paying for their own district court, however they choose to build that process, and then they're also assisting these other communities. I still think this is wrong, and at the end of the day, I think this still needs to be addressed. It's not fair to the other taxpayers in the county. So Steve, change it. Now, the last question I have, Your Honor, this would be for you. Are we done with new judges, or we still got another one coming on?
The state
Yeah, one in
legislature,
19.
well, we have one coming on, there'll be a seat, an 18, there'll be an open seat for one of the additional judges. That person will take office in January of 19. That would be it.
So in January of 19, there'll be an automatic increase to the budget because of the new position that's going on. You'll have a secretary, you'll have the,
I think he's estimated for it already, right,
Yeah.
Stephen?
was it coming in 18? Because I don't see it.
Starts in 19.
So-
Starts
so
in
physical
19, yeah.
19. Okay, all right, thank you, Madam Chair.
Chris Smith?
Thank you. You know, I have to touch on Commissioner Carabelli's comments, Steve, is that I know Clinton Township doesn't go to, the Clinton Township District Court doesn't ask for money from Clinton Township. They make ends meet over there. And I'm talking to a trustee from Clinton Township that's sitting right here also that knows that. So I guess to Commissioner Carabelli's point, why don't our district courts sustain themselves, right? I mean, I think that's something that needs to be looked at. And I don't know if it's an inherent problem that they know they're going to get money from the county to subsidize and they haven't cut and tried to actually, you know, get into that self-sustaining mode because we haven't made them all this time or what? I don't understand, because I'm guessing most communities are, their district courts are fairly self-sufficient or the communities wouldn't be able to afford them. I don't know. I just know Clinton Township is, and I'm just wondering, you know, if maybe we need to look at that along with why one of them's double the cost or over double the cost. So that being said, I have a couple questions regarding position changes. I know we're not asking for new positions, but we're eliminating some positions and moving people into other positions. And so my question is, this happens not with the courts necessarily, but this happens in the county all the time. We don't need this position. We're going to move this person up to a higher paying position. And then next year or the year after, when everybody's kind of forgot about this, oh, well, we need another recorder secretary or a dictation clerk or data entry clerk because we've just dropped them from 10 to 9, 16 to 15, or 12 to 11. And then all of a sudden, you know, we're making these requests a year later to re-up these spots. So, you know, I'm just wondering if any of you, you know, can tell me that we have decided for sure we don't need that many recorder secretaries or dictation clerks or data entry clerks, and we've looked at this in the long term, that's going to be a position that will be eliminated and not requested again next year.
And that is front of the court?
So this is, yeah, friend of the court, right.
Tom?
May I address?
Oh, I love it.
Tom Blum.
Hi, Tom.
I'm Tom Blum, the director of the Friend of the Court, and I appreciate you letting me have the opportunity to address your board. Briefly, as managers, we have an opportunity to change some of the culture at the Friend of the Court, and we've charged them with doing a better job with customer service, right? That's been kind of our bane in the past and something we're trying to get past. But for that to happen, we really need to support our employees. And part of that is providing them adequate direction and vision, adequate access to our supervisors, which really has not been happening at this particular point, and provide them adequate feedback on the job that they're doing. We have our clerical services supervisor, the one that we're asking to elevate, is right now responsible for, out of our 71 clerical spots, we have 106 total employees, she's responsible for 51 direct reports. It's unsustainable. She's running around chasing her tail and really not providing the support for our staff that they need and that they deserve. We're asking for the elimination of a data entry clerk position, which, by the way, we can ask for because of one of our other supervisors was able to, a real good supervisor, was able to streamline some of the processes in that department and job share, and we were able to eliminate that position specifically because of that supervisor. So we're asking for 2 working supervisors that will probably remove at least 26 of those employees from her direct responsibility and allow her to do some of the things that she needs to do, which are provide employee feedback. Let them know how they're doing, train, perhaps even develop a training manual and provide them direction. So that really is the crux as to why we're doing this. It's to move forward. I don't feel that the staff has been adequately supported in quite a while. We want to do some other things with our supervisors as well in terms of making them available to other people besides those in their own department.
Okay, Tom, I
The long
appreciate,
answer, I'm
I
sorry.
appreciate that, and I'm not asking, I mean, you run your department the way you see fit, and that's fine. My question really is, of those 3 positions that we're losing, and I don't know, see, you don't sit here and you don't see it, I've seen it for 7 years, that we don't need this, you can take this out of our budget, and then the next year it comes back as, well, you know, it comes back as an ask, where, you know, because we needed to get something, and I'm thinking of other departments by the way at this point. We don't need, you can take, you know, $100,000 out of this because we don't need it. We need this position. Well, then we get this position, and then the next year, that all of a sudden comes back into the budget that we need this, and then all of a sudden we're actually adding another position, or we're adding another $100,000 to supplies and services to, you know, just to kind of to move that budget up. So that's my big question, is just to make sure, and you explained one of them adequately, that we've, you know, streamlined out of needing one of the recorders, data dictation clerks. And my question is kind of overall, have we really looked at this and said, we do not need these positions, and we don't see them in the foreseeable future needing that position back?
Well, the only position we're asking to eliminate is a data entry clerk position. We're asking to elevate the clerical services supervisor position to clerical services director. That would allow her to spend some time on some of the things we really need to do, we really need for her to do for the staff. And the other 2 positions would be elevated slightly to supervisor positions that would allow them to supervise, so staff has access to them.
No, and I understand that, but as supervisors, all of a sudden you leave a void sometimes in the
No,
Indians.
they're working
so-
supervisors.
Okay.
They're working supervisors.
And if Tom asks for that position back next year, I'll remind you, remember Commissioner Smith's question last year in October. Just be prepared.
Okay. And
Where's that fly when you need it, Judge?
Yeah. Okay, and that makes sense. I just want to say that I think that this board is starting to look a little closer at those, since, I want to say, you know, being, you know, having that come to us several times over the last bunch of years in that way that I put it. So I trust that that's the way it's going to be, and thank you very much for that answer.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Commissioner Leonetti?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess, Your Honor, this question's for you. On your supplemental sheet, you have 2018 goals. One of them is the implementation of the SWIFT and SURE program. What is that program?
That is, Lisa can answer this.
Okay, gotcha.
Like a specialty court, it's going to be Judge Massaroni, James Massaroni's court, correct?
Correct.
And you did.
Swift and Sure Sanction Probation is a new program that's been started in the state of Michigan, modeled after a program in Hawaii. And it's just a new method for probation, for felony probation supervision. It's lumped in under the specialty courts because it's grant funded by the State Court Administrative Office, but it's not a treatment court like the rest of the specialty courts. It's just a more intense track of probation. So it'll be under Judge Massaroni. We're starting with 10 to 20 people for the first year to pilot it and see how it goes, and it's funded. We have a $70,000 grant from the state for this year.
Okay. Okay.
Solely funded by grant money.
Solely funded by grant money. Okay.
Solely funded by grant money.
All right. One other question. You know, the long-term goals are to relocate the probate court to the current court building. I mean, we're doing construction over there right now.
Yes.
All right. So, is any of that long-term thinking being implemented in the construction that's going on over there now?
Well, we went with the architect, Julie and I.
It's part of the construction
The
project.
construction of the 5th floor, that's where the probate court, judges, and their staff's going to be.
Okay.
So the 2 courts that are being built out on the 5th floor will be probate courts.
Excellent.
And the administration area where administration will be probate administration. It won't be effective until the very end of the construction project, because every time we close a floor, we need to move the judges off. So probably won't be until 2019.
They will be the last.
The last move.
They will be the last move. And we did meet with the architect. What was the architect's name?
John Shields from Wheatley.
Okay, we met with him.
And I don't know if you would know this, Steve, or if these folks know it. Is that part of the you know, the capital expenditures that we have, or is this strictly coming out of circuit court budget to relocate the probate court and build those
No,
rooms?
that's all part of the construction
The
project,
capital,
yeah.
the construction project. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Regarding the district court debate, this goes on every year about how the district courts out in the north end of the county, the rural part of the county, less populated part of the county, can't support themselves, and how somehow they're doing something wrong. But in fact, isn't it true, Judge, that the district courts out there, the state of Michigan takes about a half of the proceeds and every ticket that's written out there, and takes it back and puts it to the state of Michigan. We tried some years ago to get that revenue changed, to get that law changed by the state. Maybe it's time for us to take another press that issue again now that Michigan's under better times, and see if we can't get the state of Michigan to release their fingers out of the till that goes to every ticket that's written out in Romeo, the north end of the corridor, and from New Baltimore for that matter. The state of Michigan takes a big chunk of it and puts it back in their coffers to support their operations independent of what our operations need here. And that's probably going to go a long way to resolving the problem about this gap in funding that help make them more self-sufficient. But I'll remind this board also that that court is a county function. The county's required to provide those court services out there to the northern end of the county, just the way we are required to provide jail services for everyone across the county. We don't account for every person that comes from other parts of the county into our jail and say, well, there's more people coming from, by a proportion of the population, coming to the Macomb County Jail from Warren than there are from Richmond Township. We don't play those games. We're required to provide services for the entire county. And so we don't want to get in this game of, because there's fewer people out there, they're not paying their fair share because they simply can't. So just so remind the board that. And I'm all for leading another effort. We tried it several years ago under State Senator Sanborn at the time, and that effort failed. But maybe we could try to new leadership.
I was just driving my car the other day and I saw this bumper sticker that said Lucido for Senate, and some guy named Pete Lucido. You never see him or hear from him.
He's pretty quiet. He's a quiet individual. But as someone who understands the courts, and is a bulldog, so perhaps we can get him in our entire Macomb County delegation to make sure that, that to help the state of Michigan stay out of our pocketbook. So, thank you.
Commissioner Leonetti?
No, she already. No, I want to speak on the same thing, Jim. You have to get behind me in line.
Commissioner Kleinfeld?
Thank you. Well, I know with respect to that. Oh, sorry. Actually, he doesn't.
Where's the court officer? Do you have a court officer in here?
Court officer. Where's your court officer, right?
I could have brought him in here.
Okay. Actually, Commissioner Brown, I think the reason that the counties handled it was rural areas like you're speaking. I think the issue has become when townships actually build up to where they're larger than cities, and we're still paying for the services, but they now have the tax population, and they're reaping the benefits of that. And you can tell by looking at the brand new facilities and the things that are built in those communities that they're benefiting. Your area, I agree with you. Because of the rural nature, there's a reason that that was originally set up that way. I mean, if you ever reach the point where every block is built up like some of these other communities, then I'd probably say, now wait a second, the tax structure's going into, those areas. But New Baltimore's different. And, we've talked about this with different services. And not all district courts are able to make money, and a lot of cities do have to supplement them. And specifically, cities don't have the deep pockets to build new courts. We are desperately in need of a new court in East Point because the state has said, you guys are so busy, you need another judge, and we don't have anywhere to put another judge. So they're trying to figure out how could we come up with money to build a court. If they had the deep pockets of the county, we could say, hey, the state has said, and we'd probably be able to get that. So that's a legislative thing, in my opinion. I do understand with regard to how much money is spent there and the cost of it, but I think that's a legislative issue, and I don't think it applies to your area, at least right now. The reclassifications. We're doing a compensation study, and did that include these positions?
They must have, yes.
So we said last year during budget, listen, we just paid all this money for a compensation study. And all of a sudden, everybody's asking to reclassify this person and reclassify that. And we said, we don't disagree with you, but let's get our compensation study. If we do all these reclassifications now and we get the compensation study in January, it doesn't make a lot of sense. So, I mean, what I would like to do is I'd like to leave it, but not with the understanding it's going to stay that way. I'd like to be able to see the compensation study, because all of these pieces of the county play into each other. And we may have positions that have a nice title, and that's the interesting thing about our titles. For years, we didn't give raises. We said we didn't give raises, but a lot of administrators came forward and said, well, we're going to reclassify this person. So they were giving raises. But in the meantime, we got 50 million different titles, and we don't know how to compare them to each other. So I'm not against doing it, but I just don't see doing it right before the compensation study that actually looks at those positions comes out. That doesn't mean everybody else agrees with me. So, but you look like you want to say something. Do you want to say something with respect to that?
Thank you.
Not in public.
That's not true. No, I understand your point, and that certainly was something that we were considering at the time that we were going to ask for this. But the reclass has been talked about for quite a number of years. This is a need that is dramatically affecting our office, and I'm being honest with you. The current position and the current duties of that position, with everything that it encompasses, is unsustainable.
It was talked about for years, and I agree with you. I voted against the commission when the money was put in a budget and the commission took it out. It's been paid for, and I believe it's been completed, or at least it's at the end of completion, and my understanding is we're going to, Bob, do you know where that stands on the compensation study? Is it completed? Are we going to be getting it soon?
I think it would be better to ask Steve. He probably has more information on when we're going to receive that. I have no real information on that.
Excuse me, may I make just one more short comment? These positions are only being reclassified to the supervisor, the two recording court, the one recording court position, and a dictation clerk position. The only real reclass, I think, is the clerical services supervisor being elevated to the position of director.
I guess more directly to your question, Commissioner, my understanding is that the classification piece of the study is done. The compensation portion of the study is very close to being done. I don't know the exact timeline. It's very close to being done in its totality.
Okay. And with respect to Commissioner Leonetti's question regarding the probate court move, the original $65 million plan, was the probate court move included in the original 65?
To my knowledge, yes.
Okay. So they indicated that they recently met with the architects. Was there a need to do any design changes?
I was not part of that process, so I can't answer that. I don't know.
They've completed the 6th floor, and the judges have moved in, and we've had several complaints about certain items, and we're just trying to make sure we can fix them before we start the 5th floor, designing or completing those courtrooms. So we're just trying to make a few, they're not huge changes, but the seating isn't sufficient for the court reporter and the court clerks. We're trying to make a spot a little bigger so that people can both fit in the area, just certain things. And Judge and I were actually both not on the project when it started, so we're having trouble tracking historically, like where the design came from and why they did it that way. And we're working with the architects right now just to fix those things now that the 6th floor is finished, so we don't have the same problems on the 5th floor.
And slight adjustment on like the jury box, so the jurors can see. On the 6th floor, there was,
Are you adjusting on the one that was already done or adjusting on the new one?
The new ones, the 5th floor.
Okay, but you're leaving the one that was already done that way for now?
For now, yes.
Okay, because every design change is a cost.
We understand that, and we're trying very hard not to make design changes. It's just, there's a few things that were a little extreme that we really would like fixed before we have the same issues.
Well, we had some things fixed up here, and I'm just starting to realize how much they cost. And I wasn't part of deciding to change them, but I don't think everybody understood when they changed things what they were adding to the cost of this. So I appreciate your being aware of that.
Yeah, they're telling us everything, and we're being very conscious of that. We're minimal changes.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have. Thank you, Chair.
Is there a motion to receive and file? Moved by Leonetti, support by Drollet. Please vote on your iPad. Item number 8 is new business. Is there any new business? Thank you, Judge. Any new business? Item number 9, public participation. Are there any members of the public who wish to address the committee?
Thanks, Steve. Good evening, or good afternoon, Board of Commissioners, Subcommittee, Committee. Joseph Hunt, 8306 Stanley, City of Warren. I wanted to come to listen to the 16th Judicial Circuit Court presentation. A lot of really good questions to hear today that were posed as far as the consolidation of services. I guess the real issue does come down to, with this budget season, sort of still in the beginning stages, as to whether or not, as far as, as you had mentioned, the compensation study, on whether or not that's actually coming from the $65 million capital projects fund. I've looked at all of the spreadsheets going back 3.5 years. I've seen duplicate bills. I've seen double billing. I've seen a lot of different things associated with contracts. And then, of course, the main word that was used today was chargebacks, on whether or not that this Board of Commissioners, which is the fiduciary, the taxpayers, and the keepers of the funds, have actually asked for a breakdown of the actual percentage costs that have actually been expended. Because I know that the presentation regarding the capital projects fund was there was $54 million of the $65 million that was actually expended. And the real question comes down to is, as these budgets are being presented to you, for all of the moves that actually have been initiated, on whether or not any of the department heads, agencies, or sub-departments have approached you or have approached the architect to determine what has not actually been taken care of. One of the major things that Steve Sminkle said early on in the budget season is that you have to rein in discretionary spending. And I guess when you rein in discretionary spending, you have to understand what's necessary from discretionary. But like I say, I'm still looking at this $65 million budget, the expenditures, and my question is whether or not all of the chargebacks that have actually been taken place, if the Board of Commissioners is aware of the exact number of funds that have been expended. Because quite simply put, I think that the $20 million bund, which was basically, as I read in the newspaper, a dropping the ball event by Mark Delden, the real question comes down to is, was this really planned out for 3.5 years, or is it piecemeal as you go? I'll leave it at that.
Are there any other members of the public who wish to address the committee? Seeing none, we'll close public participation. Is there a motion to adjourn? Motion to adjourn. Moved by Duge, support by Lucido. Please vote. Thank you.